August 2025 has 9 major events, including the beginning of Eclipse season starting towards the end of this month. And I'll be hosting some of my most popular events, starting with the Decode Your Birth Chart workshop at quietmindastrology.com/101. This is the place to go if you want to know, when you look at your chart, what are you looking at? What are the planets? What are the signs? How do you interpret it? And how do you make sense of it? That is the workshop where we do that. And it's coming up in just a week from when I'm recording this. On Saturday, August 2nd, is the Decode Your Birth Chart workshop. And then we'll have the Become Your Own Astrologer workshop on August 14th. And then the Vedic Astrology mentorship will begin on August 23rd. Very exciting month for me. I love to share these things. We've already got amazing people signing up for these courses, so you can check them out now at the links in the show notes. And if you're watching the video, we're on video now on Spotify and YouTube. You can follow along with the transits of the month there, where I'll be showing the actual transits throughout the month. So we have these 9 important dates to talk about. That first one, August 2nd, the live workshop. Join us there to decode your chart. And then the next one is on August 9th, when we have the full moon in Shravana in Capricorn. So always the full moons are times of completion and celebration. So it's a good time in this beginning of August 9th, to look back over what's gone on throughout July. We had Saturn go retrograde. We had Mercury go retrograde. Also super popular, getting great feedback on the Mercury retrograde guide. If you don't already have that, quietmindastrology.com. You can get the free guide to Mercury retrograde for your rising and moon signs, and lots of cool details there. And you can check out the recent episode on that for more on Mercury retrograde. So that's going to be going on all the way until August 11th. And when we now move direct, but we're still in that shadow period throughout a lot of August. So there's this big theme through August of completing cycles of the past, especially emotionally, like processing things emotionally that need to be felt. We need to feel it so we can heal it, and then we can move forward with a new awareness, new perspective from those lessons of the past. But it's still going on to the beginning of August here. When we get to that full moon in Shravana in Capricorn, there's a sense of culmination with that on Saturday, August 9th. So let's look at the actual transits. If you're following along, we can see what's actually going on in the sky, which is really cool about Vedic astrology, is it's really close to actual NASA astronomy, which you can actually see what's going on in the sky in real time. So we can click through the dates from August 1st up to that full moon on the 9th. And we see as that's happening, Sun is with Mercury retrograde, Moon's with Pluto. And some people ask me about, some of these bigger picture, universal events, global events. Pluto's in Capricorn for about 20 years, from 2020 to 2040. So we're just 5 years into that, of like big changes of structures in the world and society on a big global level. But on a personal level, there's restructuring of ourselves, re-identification of who we are, what's really important to us. And this full moon in Shravana and Capricorn, I think, is an opportunity to look at the structures of your own life and reassess. So like this could be looking at your daily routine. Is it aligned for you? Do you like what you're doing day to day? Do you want to change something? Are you happy in your fulfillment of your purpose, in your career, and the sense of dharma? Like, are you doing work that you love? And if you're not, this is an opportunity to see where things are out of alignment in the structures of your life, to bring them more into alignment, which is such a big part of what I talk about here on this podcast, is helping you move towards more of your own alignment. So that could mean many things to many people, but it's the same thing for everybody. Of like, you feel things are resonant. You feel there's a sense of a fire burning inside of you and a purpose being fulfilled, and you're helping people. And we know when we're doing it, we know when we're not doing it, and we all have our ups and downs. But this is just a great time, this first part of August, to look back at, okay, what's unresolved emotionally that needs to be felt, and what is working in the structures of your life, what's not working in the structures of your life. And the most practical ground away I like to do that myself is just look at the actual calendar, look at the week, And imagine if you had a totally blank slate, if you had all the money in the world and could do anything you want, what would you be doing in your week? And 168 hours we all have to work with every week, and nobody gets more or less. We all get the same amount of time. So it's just a matter of like, how do you want to use that time? And this is an opportunity to check in with that. And particularly in Shravana, which is about hearing and listening. So this is a really good day for meditation, Saturday, August 9th, and listening within to your own inner guidance. And this could be as simple as 10 minutes of just sitting and noticing your breath. I find often so many interesting insights and clarity come up in doing that. And I like the book Catching the Big Fish by David Lynch. He talks about meditation like this of you're just sitting there like you're fishing and you're just dropping a line deeper and deeper down into the water. And you're basically just sitting, dropping your awareness deeper and deeper down into yourself. And that's where you find in the fishing metaphor, the big fish bite. But in the sort of meditation, actual application of it, that's where we find the bigger insights under those surface level waves of everyday life that we're always reacting to. So Saturday, August 9th, good day for meditation. If you want some guidance on that, check out quietmind.yoga. I've got lots of meditation practices there, hundreds of classes for you to check out. That's where we do the application and embodiment of these spiritual teachings in Quiet Mind Yoga. Here we talk about the spiritual implications and bigger picture of it, but definitely a good day for meditation practices and going within. And you might find some emotional heaviness coming up around this first half of the month through basically, I'd say August 15th or so. And August 16th, the sun will move to Leo. That's where we move into more of this sort of fire and drive and action. But this first half of August, it's a good time to just be in the feelings a bit more and letting yourself process, listening to music, doing things that connect you to your emotions, art, creative expression, and especially unfinished stuff, going back through stuff. Not a good time for starting new things. Like if you've never done a project before, if it's completely brand new, be a little bit cautious of how you approach it. If it's been in the works, it's fine. If it's something that's like already been developing, that's fine. But if it's still like this first 2 weeks of August, like you get some totally new idea, I'm going to start a new career path I've never even tried before. Let it play out a little bit. Like don't rush it. No rushing decisions this first 2 weeks of the month, because that's when Mercury's retrograde, and it's more about finishing unfinished business rather than starting completely new business where it's very likely there's oversights and just things you don't have the full picture yet when Mercury's retrograde. Test it out. Everything I say is from experience and working with thousands of people over many years. So I'm not just saying this from a book or from just my idea. It's like, test it out and see what happens for you. I'm having all sorts of just random little tech things like obstacles. This is very normal during Mercury retrograde. Like a file that I had saved and I thought it was there, I have to recreate the whole thing. This just happened before I recorded this episode. And it's like, okay, take a breath. It's just part of the retrograde thing that happens. It doesn't make sense. Like that, I know it was there. I didn't change anything. Why isn't it working? Somehow my keyboard just didn't work the other day. It made no sense. Just had to restart my computer. These kind of things happen all the time, but I've seen they happen more often during Mercury retrograde. And it's an opportunity to just kind of laugh at the sort of flow of life. This is what we're doing with astrology, I think, is just watching, okay, there's a sort of cosmic clock ticking away here, and there's certain patterns that are pretty reliably recognizable, and we can see those patterns. There is an intuitive part, there's a spiritual part beyond the logical mind, but in a lot of ways, it's just like pattern recognition, and it's very clear. Mercury retrograde, not the time for new projects, not the most clear thinking, but a very good time for going back through unprocessed, unfinished emotional work. And you may find like going through nostalgic things like old photo albums, old music you used to listen to can really awaken some very deep emotional awareness and emotional insight. So highly recommend that. Just go back to old playlists. If you got some old mixtapes you made back in the 90s and CDs and things, those are sitting in your closet. go into nostalgia mode, bring that out of the closet, dust it off, and connect back to that stuff. I think it's a very good time for this. And then, of course, Thursday, August 14th, we have the Become Your Own Astrologer workshop. This is where I teach you what it takes to actually be a Vedic astrologer and how to interpret things for yourself, for others. I've had amazing results of people who go through my mentorship. It's super cool, it's super fulfilling, and I feel like a proud parent, seeing when people go through the training and they're able to give readings and get amazing feedback, which took me many years to figure out on my own and with my own trainings. But now to see that people can do that pretty fast. So at this workshop, we talk about how to do that and the 7 steps to be your own astrologer. And there's lots of great tools now, and there's a lot of cool AI things. And you might think, well, I can just do this on ChatGPT, but you can't. I'm testing it all the time. I'm like, I want it to be really good, but it's constantly just making things up. And it's like, if I didn't know astrology, I wouldn't know that it was making that up, and it's misguiding people. So there's a lot of errors in it, and there's still no AI that's actually trained for Vedic astrology. They're all trained on Western astrology. So you give it your birth info, it's going to give you the Western details, which is a nice system. It works in its own way, but it's not true to astronomy. And when they say Mars is in Leo, it's actually not. Things like this, it's just like I've talked about this many times, like why I couldn't keep following Western astrology, because it's just not actually true. When they say like the sun's in Leo, it's not. So it's like, what are we talking about? It's more of a seasonal thing. It works in its own way, but anyway, all that to say, most resources online and AI tools are all trained on Western astrology, and then they're also making things up and inaccurate all the time. So it's still not a replacement for your own lived experience. And there's always going to be this need for sort of craftsmanship or skill in astrology. So I think it's going to become even more valuable to have these kind of skills that they take some time to learn, they take some work, but it's so rich and rewarding when you can know astrology and then know how to work with these tools. So I love to share it. And if you want this empowering self awareness tool that you can understand yourself, understand others, understand the cosmic clock that we're all being moved through, and understand the sort of patterns that are playing out, that's what we do at the workshop. And then Saturday, August 16th, Sun is in Leo. Now, this is a very invigorating, energizing energy coming through where we go. Sun leaves Cancer and moves to Leo, where it's in its own sign now. So Sun was kind of answering to the Moon. Sun likes to be the center. It's when we feel authority, power, leadership, strength, creativity. And when that's in Cancer and ruled by the Moon, that is all directed towards our emotional landscape. So it may be a little less directed, a little less firm, a little less clear of like where to go with our energy and how to lead, unless we're connecting emotionally. So there's a big need throughout July and August to connect to your emotional leadership and let your emotions lead the way a bit more intuitive, more feeling, more present, more embodied, especially in relationships. It's like the growth and the creativity and the direction of the relationship coming through emotional connection. But now we go into August to September, mid-August to mid-September, Sun in Leo is the time to step forward into owning your gifts, your strengths, your skills. It's an empowering energy. And of course, the sun, the center of the solar system, is what gives everything life. So the sun and moon together essentially is what makes life possible on Earth. But the sun, of course, is what eventually creates all of the plants, all the food. Everything is continually powered by the sun in one way or another on Earth. So we're getting back to our own sense of power and your own sense of empowerment for everybody. So you can look where Leo is in your own birth chart. This is the kind of stuff we'll be doing at the workshops. Like, how do you take this and apply it to yourself? So Sun in Leo, look where Leo is in your chart. In that area, you're getting this new invigoration of power, leadership, creativity. And so this is a time to now put yourself out there a bit more. Own your strengths, own your gifts, and stand in your power. Very inspiring, energizing, fiery kind of time, but it's with K2. So it's conjunct here with K2 in Leo, and that is now bringing our power towards the more spiritual kind of work. It can actually feel like you feel strong and powerful, but kind of weak, like you ready to go to the gym, and then you can't lift as much weight as you thought you could or you used to. So it takes away some of that strength and power and fire, and it directs it towards spiritual growth. So now you have this power to let things go, to be more in the flow of life, to be more connected to a bigger sense of purpose and meaning. So it's a detachment. And K2 in Leo is for everybody over this 18-month cycle that just started back in March. Did a whole episode on that you can check out. If you feel like this sense of like, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? What is my identity? That's K2 in Leo taking away the sense of ego control that we think we have at times. And you can listen to that whole episode on that. There's a guide for that one as well, a free download with that if you'd like to check it out and go deeper. It's a big lesson. And now you put sun here. So it's like you're both stepping into your power and letting it go. And this is like a real fine dance, like right on the edge of both, of like perfectly balanced between moving into a healthy sense of ego and this is who I am, this is what I stand for, knowing your worth and your value, and knowing that it's not all you are, knowing there's a bigger spiritual purpose. And the more we attach to the identity, the ego, the control, the more we suffer and resist change in life. K2 is here to teach you it's okay to change. It's okay to let go. And well, in fact, if you don't, it's going to be taken away. It's going to be more painful and difficult. So you can kind of choose. Knowing astrology gives you a sense of knowing the cosmic timing that's going on and noticing where you're resisting it. We all do it. It's okay. And to be sort of amused by it. Like, okay, there's that part of me that doesn't want to let go. It's not ready to change. I'm trying to control things. And when you let it go and you gain the actual power and the leadership, it's like a kind of paradox. By letting go of control, letting go of ego, you gain more success, recognition. The things the ego wants, you gain them by letting them go. And this is very much like what the Bhagavad Gita teaches, one of the core philosophical texts behind the Vedic teachings. Basically, it's like we have the right to our work, but not the fruits of our work. So we are meant to find what we really love to do for the sake of doing it, rather than for the sake of getting more money or recognition or success or material things. A big part of our purpose, according to the Vedic teachings, and what I find to be true, is there's a gift that we have to give, and we're here to give that gift to our people we work with, to our families, to our partners, to people close to us, to bring out those gifts and share them selflessly. And by doing that, we gain the actual ego things that the ego wants, paradoxically, but we still need to be detached for them and not control and not try to hold on to those things. So it's a lot of lessons in surrender, control, letting go with this K2 cycle still going on for like another 16 months. But just through July, August, it's like gaining power and being willing to let it go. So in this sense, like what I'm teaching this month in the astrology workshops, it's like gaining the power of understanding yourself and understanding others through astrology. And you can use that for a lot of things, but this K2 lesson is like using it for spiritual growth, using it for letting it go. And they say, like, we all have the same purpose in life. It's to give our gifts and to find our gifts and then to give them away in service to others. The actual expression of that is different for all of us, but the same general intention and purpose is the same. Find your gifts, give them away. That's how I look at it, at least. That's what I try to do in my work. I give most of my stuff away for free. Sometimes you can pay for things, but usually it's all free. And that feels fulfilling to me. I feel most fulfilled when I do that. And you probably know what I'm talking about. You probably experienced that as well. And you just give your gifts freely. And yeah, at times you have offers that you make money for, so you have a livelihood and right livelihood, and you can sustain that lifestyle. But it's just a sense of continual flow. It's like you always have more to give when you're tuned into your purpose and your dharma. And that's a big lesson of this month. So next big transit is the moon being exalted on August 17th. This happens every month, but it's a nice day to do nice things. Moon's in its own, uh, well, not its own sign, but where it likes to be in Taurus. Taurus ruled by Venus. And especially in Rohini on August 17th, that's where the moon's exalted, loves to be in Rohini. And astronomically, the moon actually spends a little more time here than other sections of the sky. And that's where it's considered exalted. And there's a whole mythology about the moon staying with this wife in this extended time, which is actually Rohini. There's a really cool thing about Vedic astrology. There's all these mythologies and stories that are actually explaining the astronomy of what's happening, because we learn a lot through stories. And when these things are passed down through stories, they're more memorable than just like details and facts. But this day, August 17th, the moon in Rohini, good day for spa, massage, self care, taking a bath, doing yoga, going for a walk, and all these things in nurturing ways, ways that you feel like you're taking care of yourself, enjoying life, enjoying the senses. Very favorable on August 17th, really like 16, 17, 18, around that time. And then our next big movement is on August 20th when Venus moves into Cancer. So we start this month, basically August begins when Venus just moved into Gemini. So through most of August, Venus in Gemini is bringing this playful energy. It's a lot moving through the month actually, because Venus is going to go through Mrigashira at the beginning, where we are in some ways exploring what we really want in love and relationships. Maybe some skittishness, some like think of like a deer, the symbol of Mrigashira, which can be a little flighty or like scared easily. So you might be noticing some things in relationships that you want to have, and there's a sort of beauty to it, but maybe some anxieties or fears coming up to be addressed. But it's also can be a very graceful, elegant, beautiful energy for romance and dates and things like this. Also good for just exploring options of like potential dreams of the future in relationships throughout the beginning, right? Really the end of July, right into the beginning of August. And then right away, August 1st, Venus moves into Ardra. So Ardra's a bit more intense and the symbol of the teardrop, where we might move through things emotionally. Again, with Mercury retrograde, everything else I talked about earlier this episode, the beginning of August, while Venus is in Ardra, it's an opportunity to cleanse things emotionally, to express things, to feel them. And it's a big cleansing kind of energy emotionally at the beginning of August. So if you need to cry, release, express, very good time for doing this, creating space for that if you can. It's not always convenient when emotions hit us. They are not logical and linear. So but if you can create some space in those first 2 weeks to feel and not distract, not numb it out, which I know is hard sometimes. We all have our vices and our things. I have a bit of an addiction to dark chocolate, and when I get a little nervous, I just want to have just another little bite of chocolate. Okay, now I'm ready. Okay, a little bit more nervous, another bite of chocolate. It's like it's one of my vices. So I try to be aware of that, but it's dark chocolate, so it's healthy, so it's okay. But Venus and Ardra can bring up some emotional stuff that needs to be felt, and that's where like all of our patterns can be more visible. Like, do we avoid? Do we numb out? Do we deflect? Do we go into addictions? What comes up there when it's uncomfortable? And instead, can we just sit with it and feel it? And for me, like the simplest thing is just set a 10-minute timer when the emotion starts to come up and it's like, I really need to check my phone now. Maybe you've seen that Louis C.K. bit many years ago where he's like, we used to just like sit and just do nothing. We'd have times of doing nothing, like sitting on an airplane or just waiting around before we had our phones. And now it's like as soon as we start to feel anything, just go to the phone and then you see notifications, you look at social media. It's like infinite filling up all the space of our lives. And then we don't really feel things and we don't really resolve things. But while Mercury is retrograde, it's the time to defragment, to feel those things, to let them move through. and not distract or numb as best we can. And be kind to yourself. Sometimes we need that. It's actually a very healthy coping skill sometimes to just check out and watch TV, whatever, distract, have some chocolate, come back to the thing when you're a little more spacious for it, especially if you're working through very difficult stuff like trauma or abuse. Venus and Ardra can help those things come up to the surface to be healed, to be felt. And it's very good to have some sort of support system for that when you're working with deeper stuff. Highly, highly recommend you have a support system. This could be therapist, astrologer, coach, friend, community, whatever that looks like for you. But usually it's someone else you can talk to about it. A human being, not just AI. Again, AI can be very useful in the moment, talk to it, process, but there's nothing like human support, especially when it's emotional stuff, and especially if it's trauma unresolved from the past. Uh, that could be here to be healed this month. And it can also just be, again, nostalgic emotions like we talked about earlier, like listening to old music you loved, old artistic projects you want to go back to, expression, just being more emotionally attuned and connected to your partner on a deep, intimate level, like that's just loving and vulnerable and connected, not necessarily sad or traumatic or anything like that. So, very deep kind of work, setting the stage for Venus and Punarvasu through the second half of August with Jupiter there in Gemini. So this is very nice, very positive for everybody for relationships to have a sense of renewal, hopefulness, optimism. If you're single and looking to date, the second half of August is quite nice, especially through meeting through friends. Gemini is friends, Venus is love, meeting love through friendships. If you're in a relationship, deepening the friendship part of the relationship, very good this month. More play, more playfulness, more heart expansion, more experiencing new things together, maybe going on a little trip together, very favorable. This is general for everybody this month, the second half. The only downside is it could be like overwhelming. Like maybe there's just too much to do, or if you're dating, there's too many people to potentially date. It's overwhelming. If you're in a relationship, maybe there's a sense of excitement and play, and there's like maybe too much, too many ideas, and this could lead to things like maybe spending money quickly, spending too much, doing too much, having a little too much fun, and then losing yourself in that. But it's a very generally positive thing. Punarvasu, return of the light, Jupiter and Venus here. So the Punarvasu is a nakshatra ruled by Jupiter. So all things to do with growth, expansion through love, very good. This second half of August. And then we'll reach Venus in Cancer this month. Again, quite lovely energy. Punarvasu in Cancer, and that's starting August 20th again. And more emotional renewal, emotional depth and intimacy in relationships. And then Pushya at the end of August, finding more nourishment in relationships. Very good. So, this, again, the second half of August, beautiful for relationships. And if you find it's not true for you, this may be impacted in some way in your own chart. Maybe you're going through a challenging dasha, or there's some challenging aspect on Venus for you. So, everyone is, you need to look at the whole chart holistically to interpret these things, and, your dasha, your transits to really make sense of it. But generally, for everybody, a sense for deeper nourishment through what you love. If you don't find it through love relationship, it could be through what you love, self-love, doing things that you enjoy, artistic projects, music, art, gardening, beautifying the home, interior design, anything that makes your life feel more harmonious, beautiful, and just like nice clothes, nice jewelry, gemstones, bringing this into your life, more music, more aromatherapy, senses that are enjoyable, going somewhere beautiful throughout the second half of August. All of these things very, very favorable. So with everything in astrology, there's a potential positive, negative, and neutral expression. And this is a big foundation of what I talk about a lot in my trainings. And when you see the potential, Venus in Gemini has this certain potential. Venus in Cancer has a different potential. There's potential positive, negative, and neutral for all of those. And once you're aware of that, now you have more choice to bring out more of the positive. And when you see the negative stuff coming up, you kind of pinpoint a cause of it, you could say. I actually don't know if I would say the planets cause these things or if they are sort of markers of these things happening. I, I could argue both ways. It's a different topic, but we can say when it's happening, okay, this, let's say Venus is in Ardra at the beginning of August. You're catching a lot of feelings that are very intense. We can say, okay, that's probably Venus and Ardra as part of this. So what's the positive expression of Venus and Ardra? Which is like catharsis, like emotional catharsis, like expressing yourself through artistic movements, listening to cathartic music, watching cathartic entertainment, movies, things like that. Now, Venus in Cancer, generally very, very positive, just like emotional expression, emotional connection. But if you catch the negative stuff coming out, maybe it's an opportunity for going into more vulnerability in relationships in a safe space to do that. So positive, negative, and neutral expression, just like every atom in everything has a proton, electron, and neutron. So it has that potential charge of positive, negative, and neutral in every single atom of the universe. And I think that's how the planets work as well, and astrology works. And the astrology looks a lot like a proton, electron, and neutron with these things orbiting around each other. And then you go even deeper down into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and we see that everything is actually a wave or a particle, depending on what we're looking for. So that shows us that the observer effect is very real on a scientific level. And whatever we're looking for, we're going to find. That's always the big lesson of astrology. If you're looking for doom and gloom, there's astrologers who every month it's just doom and gloom. August is the explosive month and everything is going to be revealed and it's crazy and there's aliens and everything. That's one way you can choose to perceive the world. You can also choose to perceive the world as there's a cosmic clock ticking away and we see patterns and we have choice in what to do with those patterns. That's more my perspective. It's like everything is potential. And if we look around the world today, tomorrow, any day, we see there's everything possible happening. So there's floods, there's chaos, there's love, there's joy, there's death, there's birth. It's all happening every day, everywhere. So we can't say, oh, this transit and now this is causing floods around the world and this transit's causing this. We do see patterns like that, but certain things are generally more broad and certain things are very specific, right? We can see very specific things like K2 uh, in Mula and Rahu and Ardra. That happens, a lot of big events like 9/11, 2020, Chernobyl, AIDS outbreak, these kind of things like big global events with certain transits. But month to month, it's usually not so big and dramatic and intense. And with all that in mind and all that happening, it comes back to just how do you want to work with this? Knowing these big events for August, what do you want to do with it? And that's where we go into now the eclipse season starting August 23rd. And this is, in a lot of ways, the biggest astrology event of August, is we are now starting the eclipse process again. Every 6 months, we go through this eclipse portal where we are now going to go through a new phase of life. You could think of it like a portal is opening in the universe where we can go into a major shift in our timeline. Now, again, I'm sounding dramatic here, and some people are like, every month isn't so dramatic. It's just another month. And yeah, some people have a lot of earth signs in their chart, and it is a lot more stable through their life. Some people like me have a lot of eighth house stuff and intense transformational stuff, and my life is constantly changing all the time. So I experience it that way. You experience it your way. Everyone experiences it differently. But we can say reliably that when the eclipse portals come, everybody I talk to, all the research I've done, all my experience with astrology, these are big checkpoints in the year where it's like you make some big decisions around this time, which is now August 23rd to October 6th, and you're a different person on the other side of that 6-week window. And you go into it one way, you come out another way. You have to make some sort of big decisions, big life changes. And in this case, it's starting with the new moon in Leo, where you're now sensing a new sense of self, a new identity, a new way of expressing your healthy sense of ego. from August 23rd. So we're not in the actual eclipses yet. That's coming up in September, but we are now in that beginning that 2 week window, August 23rd, where you start to look around at your life of like what's working, what needs a big change. Maybe nothing really needs a big change for you right now. That's okay. But I think as long as you're alive and really feeling and really attuned to expressing your gifts and living in your purpose and all these kind of things, I think you are more attuned to a need for some sort of change or some sort of action to take or some way of being to shift. And life is constantly changing. And if we're not with that constant change, then this is where we have a lot of our pain and suffering. And I'm speaking for myself too, like this, and the more I resist the changes, the more I suffer. And the more I flow with the changes, the more fulfillment. It's scary at times, it's vulnerable at times, but the more fulfillment I find flowing with the changes. So this opportunity now from August 23rd is saying, who are you stepping into being? What is the identity that you are playing in your life? Is it aligned? And Maga has us look at our ancestors. So you may find it valuable to do things like family constellation work. Very, very powerful. If you've never done this, very, very highly recommend family constellation work. Find a facilitator in your area. Recommend doing it in person if you can. And anything like that, looking back at ancestry.com or your DNA tests or family trees, talking to family members. This is very common. Very common. I talk to clients all the time. Like, let's say there's a trauma or abuse or something you experienced in your past that you're working through, and you've never talked about it with the family member involved or the people involved, especially if it's family stuff. And then you end up talking to those family members and you find this goes back further than you thought. Like maybe the daughter experiences it, she finds out the mother experienced the same thing and the grandmother experienced the same thing, but nobody really talked about it. And a big part of this generation of really the past 20 to 30, 40 years, this generation of people like Gen X to especially millennials and Gen Z is breaking the ancestral patterns. So breaking the old ways of, this is just what happened unconsciously. Now we're making conscious. And like things like therapeutic understanding of things, psychology are super accessible now when they were not before. And there's so many great people doing so much great work around this. And there's just so much more awareness around things where things could be hidden and in the shadows so easily, even just like 30, 40 years ago. Now these things are so much more in the public eye for many reasons with the Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, which I've talked about in past episodes. But it's about, especially right now, this month, end of August, going into some pretty heavy, deep stuff here. But you can be working on changing family patterns and timelines and changing your own identity, your own sense of like who I am and what's important to me. And that's the day the mentorship will begin for Vedic Astrology mentorship. And there's a sense of identity that you can step into of being an astrologer. If this is something that you feel called to, if you've been doing this a while, a lot of people listen to the podcast for many years before they even take the mentorship. So you've probably been following the transits, seeing how they play out for yourself. And I think if you're doing that, if you're like understanding a little bit about astrology and seeing how it plays out, you're practicing astrology. In the same way you practice yoga, if you go to one class, you are now a yoga practitioner. So if you listen to this podcast, you are now a astrology practitioner. You're practicing astrology. You're saying, okay, let's see how this plays out for me. Let's see if I test some things. Let's try and buy a new phone during Mercury retrograde. Let's see what happens. Test it out. That's, I think, a great way to apply this to your life. And if you are applying it, if you are testing it out, I think you are an astrology practitioner. And if you want to go deeper with it, that's what we do in the mentorship starting at the end of August. And that's part of the identity. So you can step into the identity of I am this thing. Of like, maybe you have an identity of I always have just enough money to get by through the month. that's an identity that's going to keep you more of a survival mode rather than an abundance mode. Maybe you have the identity of, I always have more than enough and I love to give back and be generous. Or that's an identity that's going to create more abundance in your life. So, this opportunity, the end of August, is to look at the identities you've taken on. And you might have a certain identity you don't want to hold on to anymore. And you can renew that and take on a new identity. It's very powerful, the identities we play. And a lot of marketing and stuff in online world over the past like 20 years or so especially has really played into people's identity. And that's how you can create very strong belief systems. So you're more attached to somebody's identity. If I am this person and you are that person, and you can create a lot of division, you can create a lot of conflict. You can also create a lot of unity among those people with the shared identity. But it's all a choice. And we can choose what identities we want to be following and holding on to. And we can choose which ones we want to let go of if they're not really serving us anymore. But a lot of times it doesn't feel that way. And people can get really hooked into an identity without realizing they don't have to, right? That's the ego that wants safety and control and say, I am this person and you are that person. And people can use astrology like that. I'm a Scorpio, you're a Taurus, blah, blah, blah. You know, can't trust Geminis, all these kind of things. That might be true in some cases for some people, some of the time, but everything, especially speaking as a Gemini moon, it's like I can see every possible angle. That could be true, that could not be true. That's there I am with my identity as a Gemini. But that to say, it's like that's not all I am. That's not all you are as your moon sign or your rising sign. There are many layers to it. And the more we remember that, the more free we are and the more authentic we are. And it's like what makes us laugh when we see somebody break their identity. It's funny to us because the ego is like tickled. You know, a lot of times laughter is the ego being like called out. And it's like when we see that you think you're supposed to be this way, you have to play this identity, and you break it, you break character. It's funny because it's like, you got me. Okay, I got called out. And the ego that's trying to control things and look like it's got everything together is proven that it actually doesn't. And this is a humbling reminder throughout this still like 16 more months of this with K2 in Leo, and then the new moon there with K2. It's a lot of freedom in this, a lot of freedom in letting go of things that no longer serve. And the last bit is Mercury and Leo. Mercury transits are pretty quick, but hey, we're getting out of that retrograde window, fully out of it by August 30th. Talked a lot about this on the Mercury retrograde episode and in that free guide. Check that out. Lots more there. But we end the month now, Mercury moving on into Leo with Sun and K2, bringing more intellectual understanding to spiritual work. So, very good time for any kind of learning about spirituality. The end of August into early September to mid September. So, this could be anything that helps you understand yourself better, anything that helps you be a better leader, communicator, expressing more, sharing your gifts more creative energy. Very favorable. All with a spiritual slant because of K2 there. So there may be ways of letting go of ways of communicating or being that no longer serve, learning new communication methods. Lots of great stuff around communication you can look up online, books to read, resources if you want to improve public speaking skills, marketing skills, anything to do with communication with others. Very favorable for learning here, but also anything that helps you understand yourself. So astrology is perfect for this. And this is every year I have the Vedic Astrology mentorship open around August. And that's every year we get this Sun and Mercury in Leo. So it's a very good time for learning about the self. So I love astrology. I love all the typology systems. I'm a big nerd for Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, human design. All that stuff is awesome. But none of it is as comprehensive and deep and as much about like timelines as Vedic astrology. And I think that's a big part of my purpose is to understand the timelines of things and research those. But Sun and Mercury helps us understand helps you understand your timeline of yourself and your path that you're on, and very good for learning any of this kind of stuff and retaining it in memory, remembering it. Whereas if you sometimes struggle with those things, you might find your memory is a bit stronger now. Whereas throughout most of August, before August 30th, the Mercury is in Cancer, which is more nostalgic. So you may be like going back to old stuff, but now Mercury moves into Leo. Very good time for learning new stuff and learning more about yourself and about others and how things move, especially again, spiritually, energetically. And again, I love Vedic astrology, Enneagram, Myers Briggs, all those kind of things are great tools for this. So that's our look at August 2025. So again, if you want to go deeper with me, check out the 101 workshop, Decode Your Birth Chart on August 2nd. And then if you want to go on the path of being an astrology practitioner and eventually sharing this with others and really knowing the ins and outs of the whole birth chart and divisional charts and dashas and aspects and karakas, there's so many layers to astrology that we can only really scratch the surface on these episodes. So that's what we do with the Become Your Own Astrologer workshop, and especially in the mentorship all throughout this month of August. So lots of cool stuff going on. If you want to go deeper with working with me, I would love to support you on your path. And I'm very honored and grateful to share this with you today. So if you found it helpful, leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify, share it with a friend, and look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.